put a stupid price on it, put a make me sale price on it.
Yeah.
And I put the price on, and all of them went for higher than what I asked for.
All right, so we are headed to one of my clients. He's a commercial investor, and we are heading to take a look at one of his properties, just kind of see what the process is, how he got the property, and what he's cash flowing on it. He's probably my number one client transaction-wise. We've done a good bit together, so we're checking that out. He made the switch from residential real estate to commercial real estate, so we are going to visit him and take a look there, just trying to figure out this GPS and see what it's doing. It's a commercial property right off the highway. I can't remember the type of company that he's renting it out to, but it's a decent-sized company that's renting out some warehouse space from him that I believe he inherited the tenants. So we'll ask him a little bit more about that, get an idea again, just kind of on cash flow, how he found the deal, how he put the funds together, because I believe he used either a private lender or he had the seller hold a note on the property. So we'll get another idea from him on that, and maybe also just ask him about all of the properties he has and just kind of go through that with him, just kind of how his process is, because it's way different than a lot of other real estate investors.
When I brought in a partner for pretty much all of the equity that was needed to close the property, and we got it closed. And so they're a minority partner. They have a small percentage, and I was able to keep 90% of it for myself just by putting the deal together, arranging the seller financing. So when you can get a seller to hold even a portion of that second, it makes a huge difference in your returns and what you're able to do. This one I put down 1%. Sometimes it's whatever you and the seller are comfortable with. I've done earnest money deposits of $100 on properties. I've done earnest money deposits of $100,000. So it's whatever the seller's comfortable with. And I've been talking to the seller for at least 6 months before we really started getting serious on it. And so we had a great rapport. We had breakfast, had lunch. Just over time, you talk with them and find out what their needs are, like what are they trying to accomplish, how can you best serve them and accomplish their goals. And if you can do that, then really the earnest money is almost secondary.
Right.
They're not worried about it. It has to serve the seller's interest. Like, I don't even bring up seller financing or carrying that second. If I'm talking with them and they're saying, I'm selling this property for $1 million, I'm gonna walk away with 900, and I got a beach house I'm gonna go buy for 850. Don't even bring that up in the conversation. You're not solving their problem. You're not getting them where they need to be.
So, and how did you meet the seller? How did you guys initially connect?
So the way I connect with almost all of the sellers that I talk with is through mailing letters. So I have really nice letters that I mail. They're what they call auto pen. And so it's a machine that writes handwritten address, return address, a real stamp that we put on a US flag, and I handwrite the letter inside. And then I take the extra step of, I put in a business card with my picture in every single one. And what that does is that lets the seller see you, a property owner. And I get a lot of calls, so they're like, hey, look at this guy. And when they can see you, when they can hold it in their hand when they're talking to you, everything you're trying to do is just how can you make it as high level as you can and build that rapport as quickly as you can. And that's what I think that does for me. So yeah, he called me off the letter, as most of them do. Unlike houses, everything with commercial properties is based off of the net income of the property, the NOI, net operating income. A common cap rate, if we set in the middle, would be about an 8 cap for an average industrial building that you're looking at. Multifamily, if your people watching know, they're 2, even 3 points lower than that on average for what you're paying multifamily versus industrial. Industrial has dropped a lot, don't get me wrong, it's still super hot, but not quite like multifamily. So this property, in order to, if you apply an 8 cap to it and it's worth $1 million, that would mean that the net operating income is $80,000. You just take $80,000 divided by 0.08, that gives you your $1 million value. So that tells you, if you're paying $1 million, how do I set up my capital stack, my financing, in order to be able to purchase this property that, one, allows it to cash flow, put some money in my pocket, and then also meets the bank requirement of that 1.2 DSCR. Right now, bank rates are 3.5%. That's what I got on this property, and I'm still seeing that out there, even with things creeping up. If I was to finance the whole property, $1 million at 3.5% is $5,800 a month. If you times that by 12 months, that's just under 70,000, somewhere around there. So that would not be enough. right there, because if you're saying it's $5,800 a month,
Yeah.
to 70,000
With the 80,000.
with the 80,000. So you would need to put some money down on that. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
You would need to put some money down in order to make that, because $70,000 times 1.2 is probably more like 85,000 something in there. So in that case, you would either have to do one of two things. You would have to, and by the way, you're not going to get 100% bank financing on what it is.
Right.
You'd either have to put more money down on the property in order to get that, or you'd have to have the seller carrying a second at maybe a lower rate. You just have to work through those numbers and say, if you add up your bank financing and you add up your seller financing, does that still meet that 1.2 DSCR that the bank's requiring? And I also want to add in, banks, they factor in a lot of things. So like they're going to say minimum 5% vacancy, minimum 3% management, 10% maintenance fees. Even if it's a true triple net lease on it, they're still going to factor in that maintenance, whether you're paying for the maintenance or not. I pay for the roof, I pay for the foundation, I pay for the structural beams. 100% everything else is covered by the tenant.
So they're paying taxes, insurance, everything for the property, all the utilities.
All the utilities and all the maintenance. I mean, the grass needs cut, if a toilet breaks, building needs painted, you know, whatever else goes on with it, any repairs. Yeah, so that's roughly how it would work if you had $1 million property. But putting together that seller second, what it does for your returns is significant. My number one thing is, what is the location of the building? But the second part is, I'm only dealing with long-term, low-interest debt. So 7 years is really the minimum term I like to get, and banks usually will try and tie that to the term that's left on the lease. If that's the case, I'll at least try and get it as, hey, if there's an option on it, where they will automatically extend the mortgage if that option is exercised.
Okay.
Because what I don't want is, I don't want to be 3 years down the road and having to try and figure out how to refinance this thing. You don't know what the market's going to do up and down. In 7 years, this thing will amortize almost $1 million. So that right there will be paid off, lowering what I'll need to owe on the building when I go to refinance. The second thing it's going to do over time is, this building is going to cash flow enough. I'll have plenty in reserves that if it needs to sit for a year or two, I can manage that. It won't be a problem. And the third thing is appreciation over time. You hope that the market goes up, and so that when you're having to renegotiate, or if possible in 7 years with your current tenant or get a new tenant in, that prices will be higher and won't be a problem getting that done either. So that's why I like to go as long as possible. 3 years, I wouldn't do a deal if it was only 3 years of term and mortgage on it. 5 is probably my absolute.
So, I mean, this location is incredible. So you can see the building over that way. You probably can't see it through the camera, but it's right there. This is right off the exit of the highway. You've got north and south where you can get to it from either exit. I mean, location-wise, it's phenomenal. And that's why, obviously, he said he was going for the location on it. It's just such a convenient spot to Harrisburg, Maryland. It's like the dream of any industrial warehouse buyer or tenant even. It's just super convenient, cut down on a lot of time for the tenant to be able to get to places, especially with it being, a company that's running tractor trailers all the time. This is a property right here. So you can see it through the trees. I mean, it's right there. You can see the exit for the highway coming from both sides. I drive past this building every day. I mean, it's kind of hard to miss it. So location-wise, he couldn't have picked it better.